Why a 13-year-old farmer was crowned king for one day. All right, settle down now, young'uns. Today I got a tale for you that's gonna blow your minds. Imagine this. A 13-year-old farmer's boy, barely old enough to hold a plow, who wakes up one morning with dirt on his hands. And by sunset, he's crowned as a king. But how on earth does a farm boy get a crown on his head? Well, let me tell you how it all went down. It all starts in a tiny village, nestled in the shadow of a great mountain range. Our boy, let's call him Jacob, was nothing more than a humble farmer's son. From dawn till dusk, his life was all about feeding chickens, herding sheep, and plowing fields. His family wasn't rich, and they weren't powerful, just simple, honest folk. But little did they know, fate had something wild in store for young Jakob. You see, just a few miles away, the grand kingdom of Verdania was in chaos. The king was on his deathbed with no heir to take his place. The nobles were at each other's throats, fighting over the crown. They needed a solution, and they needed it fast. That's when an old prophecy came to light. It spoke of a child of the earth, pure of heart, who would lead the kingdom in a time of crisis. Now, don't get me wrong, most folks thought it was just a fairy tale. But desperate times make people believe in anything. So the search began, and it wasn't long before Jakob's village found itself overrun with royal guards. The guards tested every child in the village, asking them questions, making them perform strange rituals. Jakob, busy feeding the chickens, didn't pay them much mind until they called his name. Reluctantly, he stepped forward, covered in dirt and sweat, but there was something about him, a spark, a calm bravery, that caught the eye of the royal advisor. In that moment, fate turned. Jakob was chosen. Jakob barely had time to say goodbye to his family before he was whisked away in a grand carriage. The fields and mountains of his childhood blurred away, and soon he was staring at the towering walls of the royal castle, the grand halls, the glittering chandeliers, the bustling servants. It was like stepping into a dream. But it was a dream where everyone stared at him, whispered behind his back, and watched his every move. And then, it was time for the ceremony. Jakob was brought before a sea of nobles, all dressed in shimmering robes. The royal priest raised a golden crown above his head, and just like that, Jakob the farmer boy was crowned King Jakob of Verdania. But it wasn't a fairy tale. No, young Jacob soon realized that wearing a crown didn't mean having power. He was a puppet, a figurehead used by the nobles to keep the peace. But this kid, this farmer boy, he had a fire in his heart, and he wasn't about to be anyone's puppet. As soon as the crown touched his head, the court's whispers grew louder. Some laughed, calling him the peasant king, while others planned to manipulate him. But Jakob had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. He listened. He learned. The first test came faster than he expected. A neighboring kingdom demanded a tribute of gold, a show of power. The nobles urged Jakob to give in, but the boy king did something they never expected. He asked to speak to the emissaries himself. Jakob, instead of trembling before the emissaries, spoke calmly. He didn't promise gold. No, he promised something more valuable, an alliance, a trade route, a bond that would benefit both kingdoms. The emissaries, stunned by his wisdom, accepted. The nobles were shocked. This farmer boy wasn't just a puppet, he was a king with a mind of his own. But not everyone was impressed. Some of the nobles felt threatened. They whispered in dark corners, plotted behind his back, and sought ways to control or remove the boy king. But Jakob wasn't blind. He saw their schemes, felt the tension, and he knew. To survive, he had to be smarter, faster, and braver than them all. And that's when the conspiracy began. Whispers turned to meetings, and meetings turned to plots. A group of nobles, desperate to maintain their power, planned to replace Jakob with a puppet of their own. But Jakob had allies, too. Servants loyal to him whispered warnings in the dark, and the boy king had learned enough to know that power wasn't in the crown. It was in the people who believed in him. No, young'uns, he fought, not with swords, but with words, with courage, and with the trust of the common folk. He spoke to the people, told them the truth, and they rallied behind him. The nobles tried to seize him, but the people stood as a wall. Servants, farmers, even some soldiers who believed in Jacob's vision. The boy king was no longer just a figurehead. He was a leader. And with the support of his people, he did something that changed Verdania forever. Safe from shadows. In the later years of Jacob's reign, whispers of betrayal rose once again. A masked figure dressed in dark robes was seen whispering among the discontented nobles. They called him the Whisperer. Jakob, now older but still sharp, realized that the poison attempt was just the beginning. The Whisperer was a master manipulator, turning allies into enemies, stirring doubts in the hearts of his people. But Jakob did not falter. He reached out to his old allies, the neighboring kingdoms he had once saved. He called for the loyalty of his people, reminding them of the boy who had stood by them in battle. The day came when the Whisperer revealed himself, none other than Elias, Jacob's trusted advisor. Betrayed but not broken, Jakob stood before his court and exposed Elias's schemes. Elias, desperate, challenged Jakob to a duel, a final battle of wits and swords. But Jakob even now relied on his mind over his blade. He revealed secret letters, proof of Elias's treachery. The court turned on Elias, and he was banished. But this victory came at a cost. Jakob realized that trust was a fragile thing even for a king. In his final years, Jakob was no longer just the peasant king. He became the wise king, a ruler who knew that power was not in a crown, but in the hearts of those who believed in you. He established a council of the people where even farmers and blacksmiths could speak their minds. He built schools, taught his people to read, and left behind a kingdom that thrived. And when Jakob finally passed away, his people didn't just mourn. They celebrated, because his legacy would never die. And so, young'uns, that's how a dirt-covered farm boy became a king. Not just by wearing a crown, but by becoming a hero. A boy who stood for the people, fought for the people, and led with a heart of gold. Whenever you feel small or powerless, just remember young Jakob, the boy who became a king for one day and a legend forever. Jacob's final speech. Jacob spoke, his voice calm but strong. Jakob. Power is not given by a crown, nor by riches, nor by fear. It is given by the hearts of those who believe in you. I was a farmer's boy, yet you called me king. Not because of birth, but because I stood for you. I fought for you, and I will always stand with the people.